spent the next several days, or nights rather, walking around the Kulak Mountains and through the Norgrim Pass to get back to Calborn Castle, resting inside dark caves, mausoleums, and the old cemeteries of various small villages, or whatever else I could find to hide from the daylight hours. Unfortunately, the spell I had cast to get to Wyvern Falls was in the book still sitting on my desk, so I had no way to cast it again to return. Another stupid mistake I had made in my rush to save a woman that wasn't real. "Oh, but I am very real," I heard from a tree limb just above me as I crossed through a small intersection of unnamed dirt roads. "Go away," I answered as I kept walking. "Why torture yourself like this?" she asked. "I could so easily help you go anywhere you like, if you but ask for it." "No," I answered again as I passed underneath her. She had been doing this throughout the entire trip, popping up and tempting me to join her. Whenever I'd left her behind, she would just appear again somewhere in front of me and continue her appeals. I still didn't really know exactly what she wanted. I hadn't bothered to really listen. To listen would open me up to temptation, and I wasn't about to let her fool me again. However, it was clear to me that she was intent upon some goal, and whatever it was, she somehow needed me to get it. If this were anyone else, any normal person, I might have been able to turn that need to my own advantage, but not with her. How can you deceive a goddess that knows your every thought before you've even finished them? How do you trick the mistress of deception? "You don't," I heard from a small stone outcropping in front of me. "You join her." "Never," I swore as I continued past her once again. When I finally reached the Sapphire River, I paused for just a moment to consider another myth I had not yet had the opportunity to test: that those like me could not cross running water. Of course, she was there, sitting on the small wooden bridge with her bare feet lightly kicking back and forth in the rushing water. She eyed me with amusement. "Uh-oh," she giggled. "Looks like you're stuck now, aren't you?" "Am I?" I asked skeptically. "Not really," she answered. "You could always ask for my help." "I'd rather die," I scoffed. "But you can't, dearest," she mocked. "We shall see," I declared as I walked without hesitation onto the little bridge and crossed the river with no ill effects. Another myth busted. Clearly, rushing water was no obstacle at all. When I looked back over my shoulder to gloat, she was already gone. She continued this cat-and-mouse game of hers all the way through the pass and up the mountain road leading to the castle. When I finally arrived and walked in, I found her sitting behind the desk in my office, casually waiting for me. "Don't you have anyone else to bother?" I asked, exhausted with her presence. "Of course I do, silly," she chuckled. "I'm bothering thousands as we speak. I'm a fabulous multitasker, but you are my favorite," she added with a wink. "You're wasting your time," I told her. "I will not join you. I will not help you. I won't worship you or follow you or anything else," I added, becoming more heated. "I have but one goal left now: to be rid of you." "Oh, this should be delightful," she smiled with a sparkle in her eyes. "And how do you propose you're going to do that? I am everywhere, my dearest. I am the darkness. There is nowhere beyond my presence or reach." "Except the light," I answered offhand as I began to rummage through spell books without quite knowing what I was looking for. I hadn't really even considered the answer, to be honest, but as soon as I'd said it, I was struck by how simple and correct it was. The only way out of darkness was the light, wasn't it? "That is why you turned me into this, isn't it?" I asked. "To keep me out of the light, so I couldn't escape you." She did not answer, but rested her delicate chin upon her hands and batted her eyelashes at me, while amusement danced in her eyes, and that, by now too familiar, irritating grin graced her lips. Evidently, she wasn't going to offer any answers, but I already knew I was right. I could only escape her in the light of Iplios. "So be it," I declared. I slammed closed the spellbook I was holding, placed it back on the shelf, and walked toward the balcony. When I flung open the doors to step out, there she was, lounging on the railing with that same damn grin. "Are you sure you want to do this? It's going to hurt," she warned. "A lot." "To be rid of you," I answered. "It's worth the pain." "Have it your way, but don't say I didn't warn you," she said. She just sort of faded from view as the lighter blue in the eastern sky beckoned the coming dawn. I could feel that slow, creeping uneasiness seep into my body as it grew brighter and brighter. It had been quite a while since I'd witnessed a dawn by now, and I stared with rapt attention as the stars began to fade from view in the creeping ocean of blue. My body was racked with nervous anticipation, and of course that uneasy warning that usually forces me into the darkness. But I stubbornly ignored it and stayed right there, watching as the first rays of Iplios crept over the horizon. For a brief moment, it was the most beautiful sunrise I had ever witnessed, and then the pain began. I looked down at my hands as the light danced across them and witnessed my own flesh searing in the growing light. Vapor began to ripple off my entire body as little by little my flesh just turned to ash and crumbled to the ground. I don't know how long the whole process took, but it seemed like an eternity of the most intense pain you can imagine until the sweet embrace of nothing. I awoke not in the abyss facing Icor's judgment as I had thought I would, but right there on the balcony where I had disintegrated just hours ago, facing her as the last hints of blue in the western sky faded into full night. "I warned you it was going to hurt, dearest," she purred. "What fresh hell is this?" I asked. "I can't die?" "I told you. You are beyond Icky's reach," she replied. Grrr! I groaned in frustration as she giggled from her perch on the railing of the balcony. One of the few myths I had hoped would be real, but clearly it wasn't. Not even the sunlight could vanquish me. While I could not exist in the light, as soon as the darkness came, I was awakened again. "Most people would be grateful for such a gift," she said. "It is not a gift, it is a curse, and I am not most people," I answered as I went back into my office and began thumbing through spellbooks again as she silently watched with that nerve-wracking grin. I had no idea what I was even looking for, but if this curse had been done by magic, then I reasoned by magic it could be undone. I simply needed to find a way, and I dedicated myself to the single-minded pursuit of everything arcane. For years, I stumbled and toyed with the arcane like a child trying to teach himself quantum physics. While I managed to find, learn, and use a few minor spells, it was just memorization. The real power behind the spells and how to harness and manipulate it to create new spells eluded me. Soon, I felt as though I had reached a dead end. What I needed was true research and development, but I didn't know how to even begin. I needed someone far more skilled than I was who could teach me the fundamental building blocks. "I know someone," she offered. "Ha!" I scoffed, as if I could trust anyone you recommend. "Just trying to help, my dear." "Yourself," I added as she giggled again. Though she wasn't always visible, she was always there. I could feel her lingering in the shadows, watching and waiting for me to stop being stubborn and accept her. As she had just done, occasionally she would offer some sort of help, but there is no way I could trust anything from her. Any assistance from her was sure to be to her benefit, not mine. I needed to break her connection. Basically, I needed to hide from her. While she was watching, I couldn't trust anything, but to hide from a god required powerful magic, old magic. The kind of magic used by the gods themselves, not the surface-level parlor tricks practiced by battle mages and adventurers. Worse, I could not trust anyone else to teach me, for I could never be sure they were not her in another disguise trying to deceive me. I had to find, research, and experiment on my own to find the answers I sought. For that, I needed to get down to the basic building blocks of arcane power, and that proved quite difficult to do. While I plucked bits and pieces of knowledge from some of the battle mages and adventuring types I came across, I found that what they really knew about magic was little more than memorization and ritual. None of them seemed to truly understand the mechanics or the power behind their spells. Essentially, they knew how to perform their spells, but not why they worked. If I ever hoped to be rid of her and this curse, that was what I really needed to know. But who could I trust to teach me? The High Chancellor of Athala, Andragasi, was a powerful mage, but I could not seek his aid without revealing my curse to the crown. To reveal my new nature would cause more problems than it solved. It wouldn't do the king any favors to have an undead count in the court. Several of the others didn't like me already. The more traditional types scoffed because I had no connection to royal bloodlines. Many of the others feared that I might be too ambitious and a threat to their own plans. Those who so badly crave power simply cannot believe that others do not. They feared me because they assumed I was as power-hungry and ambitious as they were. I wasn't. I hadn't asked for a title. Truth be told, I didn't particularly want it, and I certainly wasn't interested in expanding my responsibilities any further than they already were. This was simply something they couldn't comprehend, especially when they had already learned I was studying the arcane. It made them quite nervous of what I might do with such knowledge. If they knew what I had become, they would have all the excuse they needed to demand the king order my destruction, and he would have to just to keep the peace. No, seeking a tutor in Athela just wasn't an option. I had to keep what secrets I still had away from them. My next option was equally futile. The oldest and most powerful magics in Etia are jealously guarded by the elves of Legala, but I could not seek their aid either. Their hatred for abominations of nature is well known. If they could destroy me, they would. Something I might put to the test as a last option if it came to that, but they certainly wouldn't help me. Thus I had but one option that I knew of, an abomination like myself, the Lord of Algaroth. Trouble was, I didn't even know if he was real. I had heard rumors about him years ago, but at the time it sounded like just another tall tale spun by adventuring types to garner a bit more fame. However, I had heard my own tale spun in these taverns across Athela, and it sounded equally ridiculous, yet it was real. At least partially, anyway. So perhaps he was as well. If he wasn't real, then I'd simply be wasting a trip to the small southern island. No real harm done. If he were real, there was just as much chance he'd destroy me rather than teach me, but frankly, even that outcome was preferable to an eternity under her watchful eye. It was worth the risk. I stepped forward and disappeared into the shadows in the corner of my office.